हवामहे निधीनान्त्वा निधिपतिं हवामहे वसो मम ॐ स्वस्ति न इन्द्र वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तारक्षरो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति न बृहस्पतिर्दधातु हरिः ओम् Okay. Tanabji, I'm not able to access my own sheet. I don't know if you could stop this kind of the window where I have the introduction for Susan. If not, then I will just say what I know about her from last few minutes. So welcome, Susan. She's joining us from Baltimore and giving us the time and energy and spending this valuable 1 hour gathering the wealth of information she has gathered over last 12 years, traveling to India back and forth twice a year, north to south and east to west. And she has a very, very inspiring story. Of course, you can go to her website and read that later. But Susan has, she's a certified yoga, Deepak Chopra's certification. And then she went on to learn this Ayurveda formally from several teachers. And now she has compiled 2 books. One is Dinacharya, that we'll be talking about, Ruticharya, that we'll be talking about today, the seasonal self-care rituals. So welcome, Susan. And then the other one is Ayurveda, the beginner's guide. Thank you. So I didn't need my sheet. For some reason, it's hiding behind the screen. So.
You did great. It's much better to just say what you know than read it off the sheet, I think. Wow, thank you so much, Hatel and Maggie and everybody from the International Day of Yoga group. I thank you so much for inviting me to speak. And what I understand is this is the first time in all the years of this event that you've actually had somebody talking about Ayurveda. So I'm unbelievably honored to be that person, to be here. Maggie and I have a connection through the Chopra Center, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm grateful to know Maggie. It just struck me when I was watching the video, so beautiful, of all the yoga, that of course my journey into all of this began with yoga. I think I began practicing yoga, oh my gosh, back in the 80s. I'm old, I'm 58. So I think I started practicing yoga when I was in my early 20s, and I lived in Israel. And a lot of people in Israel go to India after the army and then come back, and they bring back to Israel with them Vedic techniques of meditation and yoga and even Ayurveda. And so I remember being introduced to yoga in somebody's living room in Tel Aviv. I don't remember their name, but they had these little groups, these little sanghas would get together, and it would all be in Hebrew. And my Hebrew wasn't that great then, but I picked up some stuff, and we would do yoga in this little living room. And it was fascinating to me. And it also felt like my heritage and the Indian heritage just seemed to go together. My Jewish background and the Vedic Indian background, I don't know why, but it all felt very familiar and very beautiful to me. And we incorporated all of these movements into our lives. And then yoga and then eventually meditation became a huge part of my life from the time I was in my 20s. And I did not really discover Ayurveda until I was in my 40s. So, and when I discovered Ayurveda, I was like, there is the missing key. Everything else was like beautiful in my life, but there were a few things that had to do with health. And in my case, it was weight. But that's, I thought weight was the issue, but it wasn't. After it went away, like you have to deal with your issues, but that's a whole nother presentation. But Ayurveda taught me how to be a great vegetarian. I'd been a vegetarian for years, but I called myself a pea vegetarian: pasta, pizza, and peanut butter. That was my vegetarian diet, which is why I weighed about 240 pounds, because that is not a good vegetarian diet. Of course, there was cheese and cakes and cookies, but the peas sound really good. But anyway, once I discovered Ayurveda, and what I'm going to teach you tonight is some of the basic ideas of Ayurveda. When I learned how people have an individual mind-body constitution and how it matches with the environment around us and the elements around us, I began to learn more about what was appropriate for me and my individual Ayurvedic constitution, which is called your dosha. And I found out where I was out of balance by going to the Chopra Center in California and doing Panchakarma, which is an Ayurvedic detox program. And once I got all the peanut butter, pasta, and pizza and cookies out of my body, I began to feel very pure of mind, body, and spirit. And I just really dove into Ayurveda full time, getting certified by everyone, everywhere. I lost about 60 pounds. I lost 80 points on my cholesterol. I became an Ayurvedic consultant. I owned a bookstore at the time, and I had a huge Ayurvedic section selling tons of products. Started teaching Ayurvedic cooking. Everything became Ayurveda in my life. And it was so beautiful. It is so beautiful. And that's the way my life is. And eventually I closed my bookstore to practice Ayurveda full time. And then ironically, when I closed the bookstore, I got these book contracts to write books on Ayurveda. So it's all working out really well, I have to say. It's sort of like an Ayurvedic fairy tale, and I wish it for you. So as we see through yoga, and we talk about yoga meaning unity, it all comes from the Vedas. And the Vedas, we call these the sister sciences: Ayurveda, meditation, and yoga. So for me, I needed the three sisters. It's funny because I'm one of three sisters, but I needed those three sisters in order to make my life feel more complete and whole. And I've been on the Ayurveda path now since 2007 was when I first went to the Chopra Center. And it's just been miraculous for me. And I hope that I've been able to put that in my books to translate it for people. Ayurveda is a living experience, much like yoga. Like if you go to India and do yoga, it's going to look a lot different than it does in San Antonio. Okay, maybe not a lot, but somewhat different. It could be, traditional classic yoga, which I take my clients to and I take them to India, is different. And the yogic philosophy, of course, is very important. But we have translated yoga and we have translated meditation to a more Western style that's more amenable and approachable and less intimidating to Westerners. And I think that's a good thing. They're living sciences. Ayurveda is a living science of lifestyle and health. And we need to, it was, 5,000 years old, like the consulate spoke about, the consul general spoke about yoga being 5,000 years old. We also say Ayurveda is 5,000 years old, coming from the Vedas. But we have to translate it to make it useful to people today. And that's what I try to do in my books. And I know a lot of people who are writing books on Ayurveda now do this because we work with clients, we see what works in the West, and we try to put some of the Ayurvedic principles into it. But at the same time, I myself try to be integrative. A little bit of Chinese medicine, a little bit of Western medicine, a lot of Ayurveda, a little bit of Jewish folklore. I got the whole thing going on in there. So I throw it all in and I see what sticks and what works for the person. And but that's the beauty of Ayurveda, is that you can make it very individual, just like you can make your yoga poses individual. I've always said, and I write about yoga in my books, that yoga, it's not about the final pose. It's about your journey to that pose. Like someday my Trikonasana, I might be right there, palms on the floor, the whole thing. But sometimes I might have my hand on my thigh and I can't get my elbow straight. It doesn't matter. It's all about the journey. And that's why it's so beautiful to be on this path together, all of you who are on the call, and all the millions of people that are interested in yoga, meditation, and Ayurveda. This is about your personal journey. It's not what a poster is on the wall. It's not what an influencer looks like on Instagram. It's about you and you living your most authentic, happiest life. And that's what I want to tell you. But I'll also do the PowerPoint so you can see a little bit more about Ayurveda and how it's connected to the seasons, because it's like this living science, and we have to also move with climate change, and we have to live with the seasons and adjust our food and our remedies and even our meditation and our breath work and so on. with the season. So with that, oh, I will just mention, if you have a question during my presentation, please go ahead and put it in the chat, and Hitel will ask me the question, because I don't want you to get lost during the presentation. It's important to me that you understand what I'm talking about. And you can also just feel free to share your experiences. I love when people get involved in the talk. And when I'm finished the talk, we will have time for a question and answer. And I am happy to do what I can for you. So can everybody see the presentation? Awesome. So that's me, and those are my books. And let's get this going here. Let's see. Okay. What is Ayurveda? As I talked about, Ayurveda is a 5,000-year-old system of medicine from India, like Chinese medicine, and it means the science of life. And as I mentioned, we have our sister sciences as well. So Ayurveda is based on what we call the Pancha Mahabhutas. Pancha means 5 in Sanskrit. It might even mean 5 in Hindi too. Is that right? Is Pancha 5 in Hindi?
Panch.
Okay, Panch. Okay. So we talk about the Pancha Mahabhutas, which are the great elements outside of us in nature. And in nature, we have space, air, fire, water, and earth. And it turns out that the great rishis, the great Ayurvedic doctors and seers of the day, saw that people were made of these same elements. People seem to be a little bit more spacey and airy. Some people tended to be more fiery, and some people tended to be more earthy. Just saying those 3 things, you probably already get a feel for what you are. Are you spacey and airy? Are you hot and fiery? Or are you more earthy? And we're going to go through the elements of each of these doshas so that you can get an idea of where you fall in this. And then once you have an idea of what your dosha is, your primary dosha, you might be able to learn a few things about how you can find remedies to heal yourself, find foods to eat to balance your doshas, find essential oils to use, and so on. So that's what we're going to talk about. Vata is the first dosha we're going to talk about. Vata dosha is primarily made of space and air, so it's cold. Air and space is cold, it's light and dry, it's quick, it's changeable, it really hates to stick to a routine. So the characteristics of Vata dosha is usually the person is usually a little bit thinner, has a light, thin frame. They sometimes have digestive issues. They have a hard time sticking to a routine. So sometimes they might go to bed early, sometimes they might go to bed late, sometimes they might, start one project and then start another. They're easily distracted. They move fast, they talk fast, and they love to have new routines and new experiences come into their lives, almost addicted to that at times. When they're balanced, they can be just amazingly creative people, full of energy. They can show initiative. They tell you exactly what they're thinking and what they want to make, what they want to create, and they're always ready to go try something new, very spontaneous. But when Vata dosha is out of balance, and what does that mean? We're out of balance when we have too much of the elements inside of us, mind and body, too much air and space, creating dryness, insomnia, constipation, cold. Vata dosha is usually really cold. They're the ones that always have like an extra sweater with them when they go out somewhere, because they might find the elements to be colder than other people do because of what they're made of. And so that is, and when they're balanced, they have a good amount of each of the air and space. They have a good amount, which creates all these balance attributes in them. But one of the major things about Vata dosha when they're out of balance is constipation, gas, and bloating. They're constipated. We talk a lot about poop in Ayurveda. I talk about poop like all day long. I know like everybody's poop patterns in my area, but anyway, because it's really, really important. But Vata dosha tends, because of all the dryness in their body, they tend to really suffer from constipation and might only have a bowel movement a couple times a week. And sometimes it's hard and dry. And that's a problem. That's an issue, because that means they're not absorbing their nutrients, and it's very hard for them to get rid of the waste in the body, to detox. And so we see that in a person, and we have our different ways of adding extra lubrication and warmth to the diet, avoiding raw foods and so on, to help alleviate that constipation so they can better absorb nutrients. Once you better absorb your nutrients, everything starts to get better. You start to sleep better, your mind calms down, you will have less gas and bloating. So there's reasons behind everything about why we want to balance things in a person. And so some of the other problems with Vata could be arthritis, dry eczema on the skin, very dry eyes, dry nasal passages, dry mouth. And so also when they go into menopause, a lot of the reproductive tissues and things dry up. So we're always looking to moisturize Vata dosha to keep them balanced and healthy. So
So then there's
that's
a question
Vata.
there. Yeah.
Yes, Patel.
Ashokji is asking it. So do doshas change over time if someone maintains the same lifestyle?
Yeah, so it's a very complicated question, because we have a primary dosha that's called a prakriti, which is how we're born. And then once we're born, we kind of quickly get out of balance, and that's our vikruti. So that's where we're out of balance. So you might be born a Vata person, but as you get older or go into puberty, you might have an explosion of Pitta dosha, which is coming up, a fire. Your skin might break out. You might start to get headaches. Your menstrual period might be very heavy. So then you're entering a Pitta stage of life and having some Pitta problems. So we have to work with the stages of life, the different ages, the different environments that you live in. But you do have a primary dosha. I do have it in this book here. I think it's on page 16. I have a really great dosha quiz that I created. You can find dosha quizzes all over the internet, but I really like mine. And it gives you a very good mind-body feeling of where you currently are. And that will help you know how to sort of mediate the problems. I will tell you, once you understand the doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, when you wake up in the morning, you can determine how you feel. Am I feeling spacey? I can't decide what I want to do today. It's really hard for me to make a decision. I might get distracted by this or distracted by that. You're having a Vata day, and then maybe you'll need to eat some very grounding foods. Have a sweet potato, have eggs and rice, have khichdi, have something that will ground you, root vegetables. If you wake up and you're feeling just hot, overheated, angry at the world. You ever wake up angry? It happens sometimes. It happened the whole freaking pandemic. I think I woke up angry anyway. Or you wake up super hungry and it makes you irritable. You're having a pitta day. So you want to do cooling things, like maybe having some coconut water, or eating some cucumbers, or making a green juice or something like that to cool you down. Or you might wake up and you say, I can't get out of bed. I'm exhausted. And you just turn over and you go to sleep for another half hour, 2 or 3 hours. Like, that happens sometimes, right? You're having a kapha and you wake up and you feel very groggy and you can't get moving. You're having a kapha kind of day. So if you have that, you need to maybe have a chai, eat some spicy foods, get outside and get some exercise. So once you understand the doshas, and you can bring the attributes of the doshas to yourself, and we'll go through them, and I'm happy to share my slides with you after this, you will begin to be able to diagnose yourself. Barring any serious illness, which are all doshic specific as well, and the organs have doshas, it gets quite complicated. But if you understand these attributes, you can figure yourself out and see what's going on with you. Long answer. I'll move on. I hope that answered the question. Pitta dosha. Pitta is transportation, metabolism. It's the agni, it's the heat. It ignites the fires in the body. So the qualities of pitta: hot, penetrating, sharp, acidic, a little bit moist. Pitta can sweat a lot, because if they didn't, they would just completely burn up if they were out of balance. So they have to have a little bit of water to balance that out. So Pitta dosha is typically medium build. They have really good digestion, because digestion is made of fire. Digestion is made of the fluids that break down the material that we eat and metabolize it. So, and they tend to run warm. They're the people you might see like going into a coffee shop. Okay, where you are, it doesn't get that cold, except it did this year. So in a snowstorm, Pitta dosha is going to get an iced frappuccino wearing shorts and a t-shirt when it's 25 degrees outside. They're just always hot. They're always running warm. Okay. And they like the coffee because it keeps their pitta fire going. They shouldn't have too much coffee. They're very, very smart. They're really precise, and they're very courageous people. When they're balanced, they're so warm and friendly. They really attract people to them. They make great leaders, and they have a really great digestive tract. But when pitta is out of balance, this is the worst dosha when they're out of balance. Sorry, but when they're out of balance, like, it's freaking scary. Don't tell anyone I said that, because I try to be really ecumenical with all my doshas, but I just had to tell you that. They get angry, irritable, critical, mean. They're just like so mean when they're out of balance, when they have so much heat in their body. The fire is just bursting out like a fire breathing dragon. It just builds up, builds up, builds up until they explode and they burn down the entire village. And then they go, I feel better. And they walk away and they leave all this havoc that they have wreaked on the village. You might know somebody like that, perhaps. With all this fire, they can get migraine, headaches, terrible heartburn, indigestion, inflammation. I had a boss like this. A lot of people probably had a boss like this sometime in the past, and I didn't know Ayurveda then. But if I knew Ayurveda then, I would have taken her out for ice cream. I would have brought her fresh coconut juice every day. I would have made her like a pineapple, cilantro, watermelon salad. I would have done like all these things to cool her down. And I would have had a better idea of how to deal with her mentally if I had known. So understanding the doshas can really help you in your personal relationships. You can't change somebody's primary dosha, as we had the person ask before, but we can learn how to work with it, and we can see when it's out of balance, and we can use our tools and techniques, like maybe giving the pitta person some sandalwood oil, a cup of mint tea. There's different things that we can do to make it better. Sorry, pitta people who are out of balance, but at least I'm not in Texas, so you can't get me. Kapha. Kapha is so sweet. Kapha is primarily made of earth and water, and they are the sweet taste in Ayurveda. Madura is the name. So the qualities, earth and water, you know, when you have too much earth and water, it creates mud, but just the right amount can create a structure to hold the other doshas together. So kapha can be heavy and smooth, slow and steady, huge amount of stamina. They're like slow and steady wins the race. They just keep plodding along. They might go slower than the other doshas, but they're going to get there. They tend to be a little bit heavier than the other doshas, but they have extra oil in their skin, so it keeps their skin smooth, and their hair is thick and lustrous is the word we usually use for kapha hair. They're very sound sleepers. You cannot wake them up. As I mentioned, a great stamina. They're very methodical, really nice people, and they really enjoy having a routine. They're hard to push them out of the routine. So steady, loyal, calm, content. But when there is too much earth and water in this kapha person, they can become really congested, too much water, sinus problems, allergies, overweight, complacent. They become, I say, greedy and needy. They're the hoarders. They start, like, if you've ever seen that show, Hoarders, they're never skinny. The hoarders are never skinny because they keep everything around them and they pull everything in. They become very needy and they need to nest. They never know when to give things up, when to move out of a relationship, when to quit a job, when to let go of a toxic friend, when to stop eating. This is what happens when kapha dosha is out of balance. The mind becomes so foggy that they really can't see what they're doing to themselves. So by slowly changing the diet, getting outside more, moving around, using some sparkly, citrusy, florally essential oils, we can start to clear the mind, and then kapha can start to make better choices. Kapha dosha tends to eat because the clock says 8 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. It doesn't even matter if they're not hungry. The clock says it's mealtime. So kapha then learns, hey, I'm not really hungry in the morning. I might just have 2 meals today. I'm not that hungry. We start to see that. I'm primarily kapha dosha, so I'm speaking from experience here. So we can, although I do a lot of movement, which is vata, and I get really like crazy, which is pitta, so I got a lot of everything, but I'm primarily kapha. So, but the mind starts to clear, you can make better choices, You can move more, eat less, be more present, learn to take care of other people, but take care of yourself first. Kapha is always taking care of everybody else first. You know, on an airplane, they tell you to put your oxygen mask. If you remember being on an airplane, put your oxygen mask on first and then help other people. Kapha's gone around putting everybody's oxygen mask on, and then they just like pass out in the aisle. So Kapha needs to learn how to take care of themselves. A lot of women fall into this category. I will say it's a lot of women, because women tend to be the caregivers and the nurturers in our society, and they are expected to take care of everyone else. But we cannot take care of everyone else if we don't take care of ourselves. And so there are ways to do it all, basically. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So here's a nice little, just a little graphic here, Vata dosha, Pitta, and Kapha. So you might see yourself in some of these. And I want to say something that's really important. Somebody who is primarily Kapha dosha. I'm going to use Oprah as an example. Some of you might remember that Oprah lost a whole lot of weight sometime in the 90s, I think, and pulled out a little red wagon full of like the 50 pounds she lost. Oprah went from a kapha to a vata. She was wearing her skinny jeans. She got herself so thin. She kept that weight off for like 5 minutes because she's not vata. She's kapha. And so she can't make herself into that dosha without terribly suffering. A kapha person cannot be a skinny mini. A vata person who gains a lot of weight will have a lot of problems. They're not built like a kapha. They're not able to hold that weight. They will have problems of arthritis and perhaps cholesterol or even heart problems, where kapha is protected from a lot of that. So it's really good to get an idea of what your primary dosha is, and then to be realistic. You really can't force yourself into another dosha. So that's just something to know. And I think it makes people feel a lot better. Like I will never weigh like 130 pounds. I will always weigh around 160, 70, something like that, because I'm Kaphic and that's just where I am. And I have to love myself like that. I can't fit myself in to some other version that is not my dosha. So when we learn to love ourselves for who we are, life just becomes a blast. I just want to tell you that. You just stop worrying about this shit. You just move on. There you go. All right. So here we go. What you came here for. We're going to talk about the seasons, right? So the doshas are so interesting. The doshas align with the time of day. They align with your time in life. We're born kapha. We go through our pitta stage, and then the end of our life is vata. The times of day are very interesting. We eat when the sun is the highest during pitta time. We sleep when it cools down at kapha time. And then we have this connection to the seasons. So Ayurveda is completely connected to nature, which is so beautiful. Fall and winter are dry and cold in most places in the Western Hemisphere. And those are the attributes of Vata dosha. Spring is usually cool and damp, and those are the attributes of Kapha dosha. Summer in most places is hot and sticky, although it can be hot and dry in a lot of places as well, and that's Pitta dosha. The main thing I want you to learn is that we do the opposite to create balance. So when it's cold and dry, we want to do things that add lubrication, are moisturizing, and are warming. When it's cool and damp outside, we need to dry up a little bit and warm up a little bit. And when it's hot and sticky, we need to cool down, and we need to learn how to manage our perspiration so that it cools the body. And that's the same if it's dry. We need to learn how to hydrate better in order to stay pretty much sane in the summertime. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. The way that I'm going to talk about balancing ourselves first is through the taste, the foods that we eat. Ayurveda says that we should have all 6 tastes in every meal to be satisfied. And those 6 tastes are sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, and astringent. And so raise your hands if you know what the main tastes are in the Western diet. The main tastes in the Western diet are sweet, sour, and salty, pretty much sweet and salty. We have very little bitter, pungent, and astringent in our diet, which is such a shame, because those are the foods that are the detoxifying foods. Those are the foods that wring out excess toxins in the body. And they're the foods that have so many phytochemicals and nutrients in them and minerals that help to keep us healthy. Sweet, sour, and salty will just make you obese. It will make your mind foggy. It sinks down into your body. These are a lot of processed foods that your body can't digest it, and it becomes what we call ama, which is literally a Sanskrit word that means undigested food. And that undigested food sinks down through your tissues and eventually becomes disease. It becomes so deeply seated in the body, becomes arthritis, joint pain, God forbid, cancer. It also can become depression, mental illness. When we eat these types of foods and we don't balance them with pungent, bitter, and astringent, we are harming our health drastically. So if nothing else you take out of this, I want you to look into eating pungent, bitter, and astringent foods for the rest of your life. Okay? Thank you. So these are some of the sources of those types of foods, because sweet is not just sugar. Sweet is not just a brownie. Sweet is heavily, it's foods that have a lot of calories and are densely nutritive. So we definitely need sweet foods in our diet. We need to have a balance of all these foods: grains, dairy, bread, starchy vegetables, sweet, juicy fruits, nuts, honey, animal products. These are all densely nutritive foods that we want to have in balance in our diets. Sour foods help to promote digestion, including citrus fruits, yogurt, aged cheese, pickles, vinegar, and so on. We call sour. Salty foods, or a lot of processed foods, are very, very salty, as well as all the great salts that we eat. And also just be aware of the salt you eat. There's so many different types of salt: Himalayan salt, sea salt. I have salt in so many different flavors. I have vanilla salt, I have jalapeno salt, I have cinnamon salt. There's so many different salts you can get out there. So I want you to play with that, because they're actually quite dosha specific as well. And here are the tastes that are like super important: pungent, bitter, and pungent. These hot foods: radishes, mustard leaves, even thyme and basil, clove. These are all considered pungent foods. Ginger as well. Bitter foods are absolutely amazing. And this time of year, spring and summer, the bitter greens are everywhere, and you must get them into your diet. Things like watercress, mustard greens, arugula, radicchio. Oh my God, radicchio is so bitter. You cannot believe that this came out of the earth. It's amazing. So just look into those, because these are the most anti-inflammatory, detoxifying foods on the earth. So we must have bitters. You know, you can also, a lot of health food stores sells like little tinctures of bitters. You can add that to some water, or even just put it directly on your tongue, and that they're good for you. They sell them for alcohol, but you don't have to mix them with alcohol. And then there are the astringent foods: beans, legumes, lentils, pomegranates, tea. You might notice if you drink some black tea, your tongue might feel a little bit astringent, a little bit dry. These are the healing and compacting foods. They help to sort of like a trash compactor for all the gunk in your body and help get rid of it. So we really need to look into adding these foods into your diet. So please take this very, very seriously. So here we are moving into summertime in a few days. And I know if you are in Texas, it's very, very hot there. And so we need to really be thinking about what we're eating. Like, I know you have a lot of great Tex-Mex food, but should you really be eating a hot, spicy burrito and having a margarita on a 100-degree day? The answer is no, okay? Because that is just going to heat up the body more and create problems for us. So we want to do the opposite. Remember, we're talking about the opposite. The food groups that we concentrate on in summer are sweet, bitter, and astringent. These are the same foods that pacify pitta dosha. I always say pitta has to have sweet, because otherwise they're kind of scary. So you got to give them the sweet foods. But it's true for anywhere it's hot, because these foods help to balance out the heat in the body. They help to cool the system. They have like magical powers. I don't exactly know how it all works, but somehow it works. So we're looking for naturally sweet foods like juicy fruits, peaches, plums, grains that really help. Grains that rice or quinoa, things that are cooked in water, actually transport more water to the system. Squash, zucchini, so much water in them. Watermelon, of course. Ghee, clarified butter, is the oil of choice that we love in Ayurveda, helps to deliver the nutrients deep into the tissues. Milk and fresh yogurt, they're best if they're diluted a little bit and with certain spices to make a lassi, which you might get, in an Indian restaurant. The sweet taste is cooling. It can sometimes be heavy, but it can reduce inflammation in the body. So we want to eat these sweet foods in moderation. And this is all true mentally and physically. We want to cool down mentally as well as cooling down physically in the summer. But we want to avoid the foods, the concentrated foods, soda, fruit juices, cookies, and so on, that white sugar is death to you. So really try and stay away from it all that you can. Look for naturally cooling things to drink, like coconut water, chilled. We don't really use ice in Ayurveda because it puts out the digestive fires, but in the summertime, I believe you can chill your drinks a little bit. Herbal teas, hibiscus, peppermint, lemon, those are all great, great, great ideas for summer. And then the next flavor we want to favor is bitter. As I talked about the bitter greens in India, they have these bitter melons called Kerala, I'm not sure you say it. They're the most bitter thing I've ever tasted in my life. But in India, somehow they do it with like a lot of oil and salt, and somehow you can eat it. I never have figured that out, but maybe our Indian friends can give us some recipes for that. But that is an extremely healthy food. But you can see in the pictures here, we have our leafy greens, even a little bit of chocolate, some coffee beans, pomegranate seeds are great, apple cider vinegar. You could start your day off with a small glass of water and put a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar in it, and that will already help to alkaline the body and help to keep you cool. So those are some of the ideas for bitter foods. Astringent foods, we talk a lot about the pomegranates, chickpeas, and parsley. So it can be a little bit drying in the mouth, but it helps to get rid of the toxins that when we have too many toxins in the system and the body keeps trying really hard to digest it, it just creates more heat in the body. So we want to go to these astringent foods which help to dry that out a little bit. Cranberries, artichokes, the cruciferous vegetables. I see there's another question, Hitel. Did you want to ask me that? Oh, you're on mute.
I think someone just commented bitter gourd.
Oh, bitter gourd. Yeah. Fantastic. That's great. Thank you. So these are the flavors that we want to avoid in summer. I was going to get to them. There's going to be flavors that you should avoid, their taste to avoid. They're the sour taste, we would say, is in some cheeses, lemons, and tomatoes. They're foods that make fermented foods are considered sour, hard cheese, sour cream, some fruits and vegetables. Too much sour can really disturb the blood. It creates heat in the body and the muscles. So I like to use a little bit of lime juice in my water in the summertime, or lime on my pasta or rice or whatever I'm eating. Lime juice helps to cool it down. You see, that's why you have never thought of this before, but like you have a lime and you do tequila, right? Or also you see lime in a lot of Mexican food. It's to cool it down. It's amazing. It's sweeter and cooler than a lemon is. And then we want to minimize salt, because salt actually retains water and it can create high blood pressure and inflammation, when we need also to let that water go to perspire on the skin to create coolness in the body. And then we want to avoid the pungent foods like onion, ginger, chilies, because they're hot and we don't want to create any more heat in the body. So excess thirst, burning sensation can even cause internal bleeding, dizziness, and inflammation. So we want to be aware of that. So here's a nice slide. Take a picture of it if you want, or I'll send it to you. But these are great little summer rituals to do. I love, my husband and I both do earthing. We take our shoes off usually in the morning and sit outside and put our feet in the grass or walk in the grass. Earthing is, it helps to balance you with nature, and that's what Ayurveda does. And what better way than just to feel that the electromagnetic, you know, pulse of the earth. I think this one, my dogs love to lay in the mud and on the grass. They know that naturally, that they want to be close to the earth to help them feel more in balance. We also, we like to do a daily massage in Ayurveda, and in the summertime to do that massage, which helps to get rid of toxins and sort of increases the body's healing power. When you sort of rub it, you get the lymph moving and you can clean things out. Coconut oil is great for that in the summertime. It's a cooling oil. Essential oils, eucalyptus, peppermint, sandalwood. You can use them, you know, at your third eye when you meditate, or on your pulse points when you're doing yoga. Try to exercise at dawn or dusk when the sun is at the lowest points. Then we have for mosquitoes, there's a remedy here for mosquitoes using essential oils. And then I'm not sure where that little, sounds like a baby crying. It's awfully cute. I don't know, coming from somewhere. Anyway, and then we have to repel ticks. You can also use essential oils for all these things that come up in the summertime. And then I love to use a rose water spritz. I like to carry it with me even in my car and do a nice spritz. Rose water helps to cool down the pitta dosha and helps to cool you down in summer. So this is a great recipe for what we call a spice churna, or a spice mix. In Sanskrit, it's called a churna. And what you can do with this is you can make your own spice mix. You take all of these things, coriander, cumin, fennel, so on, put it into like a coffee grinder or a spice grinder, and you make yourself this mix. And you can just leave this out in your kitchen and use it on all of your food, eggs, rice, whatever you're making, potatoes, pasta. Use it to spice up everything, because it's going to help balance you for the summer. But also what I like to do when we were eating out is take a jar and make a small jar and take it to restaurants with me, because I find that most restaurants, the food is very, very bland. And when you take, there's spice churnas I have in my books, and you can find them everywhere online for each season and each dosha. This is the one to reduce pitta dosha as well. You just take it with you and put it on your food in the restaurant, and then it's yummy. Then you don't have to just live with salt and pepper. There's a lot more to life than salt and pepper. And then this is one of my favorite green juices for the summer. I don't juice that much because juicing doesn't have fiber in it, but in the summer, the digestive fires are low. You might notice you're not as hungry in the summer as you are in winter. In the winter, our digestive fires are high. So in the summer, they're low. So we want to keep ourselves kind of cool. If we eat a lot of food, then the body has to do a lot of work to digest it, and that creates heat. So adding a juice in a couple times a week, maybe as a meal replacement, if that works for you. Your body absorbs the nutrients right into the blood, right into the tissues when you juice, because there isn't any fiber. And so you don't heat up when you're digesting it. And this is a nice cooling recipe of basil and fennel, celery, and apples, and so on. I will say that I made this once in a cooking class, and they had alcohol with them, and they added vodka to this drink, and they really loved it. So do whatever you want, but you could make it into an alcoholic drink. But alcohol and summer don't really mix well together. But I'll let you do whatever you decide. But if you are going to make a juice, it's best to drink it right away, or just keep it in a jar, in a glass jar in the fridge, up to 8 hours max, but it starts to lose its nutrients pretty quickly after you juice it. Okay. So those are just some of my ideas. I know I went through it very fast, but there's more in my books. So these are both of my books. They're available everywhere books are sold. Please buy from your local bookstore. One of my favorite is in Austin. His name escapes me right now. The big famous bookstore in Austin. But anyway, you can also get them online, shop local when you can, or get it from your library. Lots of great details. In Ayurveda Beginner's Guide, I go through I think 12 yoga poses and adjust them for your dosha. So that's pretty interesting. That's one of the things in the book there. And this is how you can reach me, and feel free to email me if you want the slides. You can text me, you can ask me questions. I do consultations by Zoom now, of course, and so I'm happy to work with you. And there's more information on my website. And I was just so excited to be with you all tonight. So I just want to say namaste, which means, as you probably know from yoga, the divine in me honors the divine in you. And you are all amazing divine people. And I'm sorry if I dissed the pitta doshas in you, but you're all great. And I know we can balance everybody. And I want to thank Maggie and Patel and everybody for inviting me to be here. And let's have some questions. I'm here for you.
Maggie has a question.
So, Susan, thank you for all of that information. It was amazing, or how I like to say it, amazing. And I just love your energy. This is really Susan, just full-hearted. And she also does writing classes. She didn't even tell you guys about that, but one of her other passions is she loves to write and connect that with, anyway, a lot of different themes. But curious, since we're looking at the 7th International Day of Yoga, and people are practicing yoga all over the world. And as the seasons change, as we change, a lot of times we don't stop to think about, should we change the style of yoga we practice? So can you speak a little bit about that, like just how we can think about which styles of yoga to consider for our personal practice as we age and along the seasons?
I will say that Dr. David Frawley has written the most fantastic book on yoga for your doshas. I think it's called Yoga for Your Type is the name of it. It's Frawley, Frawley. And I stole everything from him for this book, for the yoga part, but I acknowledged him. But yeah, we definitely have yoga for the seasons. So like, and for the doshas and for all the ages as well. Vata dosha really wants to do grounding yoga, things that keep them close to the ground, like child's pose or forward bends, even balancing poses are really good. I love tree pose for Vata because they get to feel what it's like to be connected to the earth and then opening up to the universe as well, and feeling safe in that pose is really important for Vata. So sort of like that going in and up is really good for Vata. Pitta dosha really needs heart openers. So like camel, like having that trust to fall back and then keeping your heart wide open. You kind of feel like you're losing control in that situation. But because Pitta loves to stay in control, but when you have to reach back and grab an ankle and then grab another ankle, I mean, for me, that's a little bit scary sometimes, that pose, but that can be really pacifying for Pitta, and they can rest in a heart opened pose. Also Trikonasana, anything that we do that seems to like we can come together and then open wide is really important for Pitta. And I should say breathing is really important too. So Vata can breathe a little bit deeper and longer in their poses. Pitta should breathe a steady in out breath in their poses. Kapha needs to get moving. So Kapha does well to move a little bit more quickly through their poses, I'll say that. But then again, I really like Kapha to work with alignment. I really love Iyengar yoga for Kapha because they have to stay in a pose for a decent amount of time and keep sort of doing like micro movements to be in that pose. And Kapha can be so lazy that they don't want to, sorry, Kapha. I mean, I'm Kapha. Sorry, but they just kind of want to do it and be done. But when you make them stay in the pose for a long period of time, I see Kaphas dripping sweat when they're doing some just like warrior, because they have to stay there and they have to feel, is my hip in the right place? Is my spine aligned? Where is my hand? I love Iyengar yoga. I'm a total Iyengar freak. But so I think that's really important. And then Kapha also breathes slow and steady in their poses, but to work up a sweat, to do a little bit more. Kapha needs to get off the ground and do more standing poses. Although I will tell you, I love doing my seated forward bends and all that, but Kapha needs to be standing a little bit more. And so you can also do those think of the same type of things for the season. So in the summer, we want to do more heart openers, more hip openers. I didn't even mention that. Even things like pigeon, any kind of hip opener, and just laying on your bolster and opening up your spine. Oh my God, that is just like the best. And that's great for summertime too, because you're cooling, you're actually giving your organs space to cool in the body. For winter, fall and winter, I would think of doing more twists, because then you are twisting the organs in the body and creating more heat in the body, which is what we want to do. More seated and slower and coming into yourself poses. And in the springtime, we want to get moving in our kapha poses, maybe doing 10 or 12 sun salutations would be great. That is great. I never do that many, but that's awesome. But I like to think about it. But that really helps to get you moving in springtime. That's a great exercise. And then coming though to a rest at the end, and remembering for each dosha how important shavasana is. I almost think sometimes that shavasana is the most important pose in yoga, because we're interring into our bones and tissues. We're integrating everything that we have done, all the movement, all the breathing, all the sweating. We're just integrating it deep into our bones, into our muscle memory. So don't skip shavasana. Kapha loves shavasana, will fall asleep. Pitta cannot wait to get it over so they can check their phone and get moving. And Vata just gets sometimes even dizzy and a little disoriented. They might do well with an iPad over their eyes or a blanket over them. So yeah, it's really specific to the dosha. And again, David Frawley's book is pretty amazing. What else can I tell you?
So Joyce wants to share her thoughts. She says, your journey sounds so similar to mine. I was just a bit later to the path than you. I have just finished my Ayurvedic and PSM teacher certification with Chopra, and I'm leading a seasonal cleanse with a couple of clients this week. This session is so reassuring to let me know that I'm on right track. And I just forgot to tell them that they can unmute and you like to talk straight to them. So
oh yeah, please, yeah, feel free to unmute. And I will tell you, a lot of these slides, I'm sure Maggie probably recognized them. I think Maggie, you do Perfect Health, right? So these are the Chopra slides. I've added some slides and modified them, but these are the basis of this are my Chopra Center slides that I've been teaching with since 2008. And so the Chopra Center, while it's no longer what it used to be, they did give us great materials to work with. And I hope that you have those, because they're great teaching tools. They did a great job with that. I saw a question asking about wheat and rice. What was the question there? Rice versus wheat. Any suggestions? So I will say that rice and wheat both, you must have organic, because if you eat them non-organic, you're basically eating pesticides and herbicides, and you're doing terrible damage to your body. So please, legumes, wheat and rice. Okay, and fruits and vegetables, if you can, please try and eat as much organic as you possibly can, so we can make the world change. So we can all have organic foods, but so you can extract the most nutrients from those foods. Organic wheat can be fine for Vata and Pitta. Usually they do fine with that. Okay, rice is, it's a little bit heavy for Kapha dosha. Rice I put in for every dosha, just maybe a little bit less for kapha, but rice is that, you look at the whole world, rice and beans seem to be the basis for every ethnic food in the world, everywhere. I've even been to Bhutan, in the middle of the Himalayas. Some sort of rice and bean dish is there. It's because it is a complete protein. So please don't be afraid of rice, and don't be afraid of potatoes either. In, what was it, Scotland or Ireland? Scotland. They starved when they didn't have the potatoes. They had the potato famine. Potatoes have protein and carbohydrates slowly leaking into your body and giving you nutrients. Just don't eat French fries, but make your, cook all these vegetables and all these things I'm talking about really well with good spices and herbs, and eat in moderation, eat for your dosha, but don't be scared of wheat and rice. I don't think it's one versus the other. I don't count calories. I don't eat processed food. I don't look how many carbohydrates I eat. I ask my body, are you hungry? What are you hungry for? And what is the season? Like zucchinis and everything is so great now, and all the greens. So we're making tons of stir fries. And it's summer, it's getting hot. So I feel like only eating 2 meals a day. I eat around 10 or 11. I eat again around 5 or 6, and that's it. Ask yourself what you need. Once your mind is clear and your brain is clear, and you can make good decisions, you can really check in with yourself and see what's right for you. So I don't like any of these fads. I don't do like the Whole30 or the keto or the this or the that. You know, God gave us food. Mother Nature gave us food that grows on trees and said, when you're hungry, eat. So I think we need to get back to that and really try. Look, once in a while, you might go out for an ice cream, or you might have a margarita. But, you know, so you deal with that. Maybe you don't feel so great the next day. You don't do it all the time. But I think you can work on that. And we have to come into ourselves and be a little bit quieter and figure it out. So I see somebody wrote something about low GI rice. It's processed. Anytime that you have something that says they've taken the fat out, or it's low this or that, it's been highly processed, and I don't recommend it. So that's what I think that the Zahara is talking about, but I could be wrong. But I like basmati rice, I like wild rice, I like jasmine rice. White rice for most of the year, unless I'm making like a kanji, which is where you take an enormous amount of water and a little bit of rice and you just cook that rice to death. You can use brown rice for that. I kind of like that. Do you consider items advertised as organic are organic? That's become a problem. So it's really good to know your farmers. And if your farmers are not spraying their crops, that's great. And being certified organic is very expensive. So if you read the labels, it might say that they've used mostly organic ingredients, but they're not all organic and they don't have the label. So I kind of believe that. And sometimes I even call companies. I say, are these chickpeas organic? It doesn't say on the hummus, where are you getting these chickpeas from? Because chickpeas are filled with glyphosate if they're not organic. And so I call and I actually ask. And we have to, you know, trust what we find. I didn't read all the questions. I just sort of read things as they popped up.
Yeah, there was one question that we missed is, can you mention some foods that balance all doshas?
Khichdi. So we make this Ayurvedic dish called khichdi, which is mung beans and basmati rice, and then we mix with it seasonal vegetables and spices. Khichdi is balancing and nourishing for everybody. I know Indians sometimes laugh at this because khichdi is like what their grandmother made when they didn't feel good, and you can't hardly find it in restaurants. It's not like a gourmet food in India, but it's so delicious. So I would say khichdi. You know, I would say if you just eat seasonally, the food is balancing. So if you just eat with the season, you're going to feel balanced no matter what your dosha. So I see a question Zahara asked here about 1% milk. Sweetie, it's processed. The cow didn't make 1% milk, right? There are like skinny cows making 1% and 2% milk. It's best for you to drink the real thing, rather than something that's been heated up. You know what happens, sweetie, when they make that 1%? They heat it up so high, they skim off the fat, it kills all the nutrients, and then they put nutrients back in it. Is that crazy? They give you vitamin D and calcium back in it, what was already there. And it's hard to absorb that. That's why people have so much problems with milk. So please, take whole milk and add water to it if you don't like it, or use goat's milk, or go for one of the alternative milks. I'm pretty much addicted to oat milk, and I actually add water to it because it's so thick. But yeah, anything that is not the way nature made it is processed. Do we need to prefer? Yeah, we say in Ayurveda to do white rice because brown rice is hard to digest. It just takes a lot of energy to break it down, and you need that energy to be doing other things in your body. If you're a super pitta person in the heart of winter, when your digestion is stronger, then I say you can have some brown rice. Otherwise, it's not really necessary. Oh, and remember, everybody, I am not a doctor. I just have this like Ayurveda thing going on. So don't like be like Dr. Susan said so-and-so, because I'm not. As I'm just a Jewish girl in Baltimore trying to help people. So just, you know, take it all with a grain of rice, of white basmati rice, see your health practitioner if you have a serious problem, you know, or call me and I can help direct you. Ayurveda supports. Ayurveda is about longevity and prevention. There are Ayurvedic doctors that have 1,000 times more knowledge than I do, so please go see them. I believe in integrative medicine, as I mentioned. You know, Ayurveda is great for chronic. Might even take antibiotics if something really terrible came up, but then I know how to fix it with probiotics, fermented foods, and so on. So, you know, we integrate everything. Winter melon, I don't know what winter melon is, but melon is usually good for vata. Thank you for saying I did a wonderful session. Is store-bought almond milk good? Yeah, look for organic almond milk. Almond milk is intense on the environment. It takes an enormous amount of water to grow an almond. So we just think about that a little bit, and then all the workers that they bring in to harvest these almonds. It's just same with avocados. So just think about the whole line behind you, and then make your choice. Oats seem to be like really easy to make milk from, and you can make it yourself in a little nut bag or just, you know, buy it. It seems to be less labor intensive, I think. So I'm not buying almond milk anymore myself, but, you know, thank you for saying I have positive energy. You could listen to me all day. Tell my husband that. He gets a little bit tired of it. But thank you. Honestly, I am so enthusiastic about Ayurveda. I give these presentations all the time and I never get tired of it. And I never get tired of your questions. And I always find some new angle and some nuance to offer to people. And I just, honestly, the world is a little bit crazy out there. And when we take care of ourselves, we can face it better and we can take care of other people. We can serve others. And that's really what I believe in is serving others. So with that, it's 9:01. Maybe we should end there.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. This was very useful. Food is so important, and thank you for putting it all together, and really appreciate your time and energy like everybody else has felt it. So thank you, and Shubharatri. We'll finish